Like many people, I enjoy watching films based on real events, including courtroom dramas, the kind where everything depends not on action, but on words, tone, and the tension between the lines. These days, we seem to have no shortage of films like that, but more and more they feel like just another kind of show, a high-profile case, some topical slogans, a tidy conclusion, all done by formula. Compulsion isn't like that at all. When I first watched it in my teens, I thought it was something like a noir version of Dostoevsky. Two intellectuals, arrogance, a crime for the sake of an idea, some pseudo-philosophical talk about power and freedom. But as I got older, it became clear. This isn't really a story about two clever kids trying to play God. It's not a film about the crime, and not about the killers. Compulsion is about us, about a society that's been given the right to judge, and now has to decide what to do with the ones who cross the line, about what's left when there's no remorse, no faith, no redemption, just the court. Why this film still works, and what's worth seeing in it today, let's break it down. Compulsion is based on a real-life case, Leopold and Loeb, two young men from wealthy, educated families who take the life of a schoolboy. No strong motive, no emotion, almost like an experiment. But the film doesn't turn it into a spectacle. In fact, the act is barely shown at all. What matters here isn't how they did it, but why, and what comes next. They had a plan, a so-called perfect crime, cold calculation, intellectual posturing, minimum traces. But it all starts to fall apart with a single pair of glasses. One of them leaves them at the scene. That detail sets the whole thing in motion. From there, a ransom letter, a stolen typewriter, small inconsistencies in their stories. The detectives piece the case together step by step, and you watch their careful facade begin to crack. And at some point, it even becomes satisfying. Especially when the prosecutor, sharp and deliberate, takes their defense apart piece by piece. Not with hatred, but with clarity, like a surgeon cutting through an illusion. But the investigation is only part of the film. The real focus is the courtroom. That's where the real story begins. The prosecutor demands the harshest sentence. The psychiatrists argue about mental state and motivation, and the defense attorney tries to defend not the act, but the right to life itself. Still, the film doesn't lock itself into just these three. There are also Sid and Ruth, friends of the accused. And through them, we get a different perspective, more human, more vulnerable. Sid is calm, observant. He can see through the surface. Ruth is naive, almost in love, looking for something to hold on to, even when maybe she shouldn't. The contrast between these two pairs becomes the nerve of the film. One couple builds a plan for the sake of an idea. The other tries to hold on to some kind of humanity, even in faces where there seems to be none left. Compulsion doesn't try to shock with violence. It's more interested in what comes after, and what that says about us. Compulsion is a film that doesn't work through plot twists, but through pressure. Not external, internal. It doesn't matter who runs, who fights, who betrays. What matters is what's left when there's no way to justify yourself anymore. This film doesn't ask you to sympathize with the people on trial, and it doesn't try to romanticize them. Quite the opposite. We see two young men who don't need money, or power, or love. They're just bored. They feel superior. They want to try, just to see what happens. And that's the whole point. The plan comes not from need or rage or despair, but from decay. Intellectual decay, arrogance and detachment. You don't watch them because they're complex. You watch them because they're empty. And that's what disturbs you. How easy it is for emptiness to look like intelligence. This is where the figure of the attorney comes in. And that's where compulsion becomes something else entirely. Orson Welles delivers one of the most powerful courtroom speeches ever filmed. He's not arguing innocence. He's not asking for forgiveness. He's challenging a system that's ready to erase life and asking whether it has the right to. He doesn't appeal to emotion. He speaks from a place that's seen too much to believe in easy answers. And that's why his voice rings louder than any other. He's not defending these two. He's defending the idea that life, any life, still has value. Mercy, not as an excuse, but as a boundary we shouldn't cross. Not out of pity, but because without it, we stop being human. This isn't sentiment. It's resistance against systemic cruelty, against the moment when justice becomes ritual punishment hidden inside procedure. Sometimes it feels like court is about fairness, but compulsion shows that often it's just a stage. And the audience isn't waiting for a verdict. They're waiting for punishment, just to feel that the world still makes sense. That speech isn't about pity. It's about saying this: we don't become better by doing the same thing, just wearing robes while we do it. And that's what this film gets right, more than most. It doesn't offer moral lessons. It doesn't explain what's right. It simply shows how we judge, how fast we turn to punishment, how easily we divide people into evil and not evil, and how hard it is to stop once the crowd starts cheering. Compulsion isn't a loud film, and it's not some lost classic. It doesn't impress with visuals, doesn't press with music, doesn't shout for your attention, but it holds, because it speaks calmly and precisely about things we still struggle to say out loud. It doesn't explain cruelty, and it doesn't try to excuse it. It simply shows what it looks like, without masks, without justifications, without decoration. It doesn't ask you to feel sympathy. It doesn't offer closure. It just says, here's what happened. Here are the people who did it. Now it's your turn to decide. Today, when even courtroom stories often feel like performances, this one feels like a test of sensitivity, of whether you're able to stop yourself before you strike, of how easy it is to say, they deserved it, even when you don't fully know what for, and of how easily someone gets erased just because they didn't seem human enough. Compulsion leaves us with a question that has no simple answer. Where is the line between justice and revenge? And who decides when it's been crossed?